Hey guys, welcome to Double Shot of Steelers. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. And this program today is going to pretend that it's 8 days from now. And we're going to put the Steelers on the clock. We're going to try to work our way somewhat symbolically, but with some names through the first draft, and then get to the point where the team makes its selection or doesn't at the number 21 slot. Chris Halleck will be joining me here momentarily. My thoughts on this are plain and simple. I want the best talent available. Now, if that's an edge rusher, I'm going to have a problem with that. But if it's pretty much any other position, I got to be honest with you, I'll take it. And that reason for that is that I'm not looking at anything that's short term. I'm not looking at any priorities that are, in the moment or positional. Again, those are nice if you can address them. Those are nice if you can get who you want, when you want them, and where you need them. But for the most part, if I look back over the last, really ever since TJ Watt, what I'm doing is I'm going, where's the top type talents? You can't get a TJ. You can't get a Cam Hayward every single class. You just can't. You're not going to pull that off. There aren't enough great players on the planet to do that. But you got to hit way more often than the Steelers have, including in a couple of occasions where they moved up thinking that they might have gotten that somebody. Devin Bush. That has to change. That has to change. And the only way to change it is for when the Steelers' turn comes, everybody in that room looks at each other and they look up at their board. They don't look at the part that has their positions identified. And they say, what's the name up there? Okay, that's the player that we want. That's the player that we're going to add. And we're going to figure out over time where that player fits into our offense or our defense or even our systems within the offense and the defense. That's how you do this, okay? A Wombat here says this is where you justify a bad pick. It's already happening. If you say, well, we have to go for a quarterback because my goodness, look at the need. No, nobody's forcing you to do that. Nobody's forcing you to do that. Go and get yourself the best player who's right there. That's it. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Now, as far as who's going to be there, who's going to fall, and all that other stuff, that's where we're going to turn to Chris Halleck right after this break.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
What's happening over there, Chris Halleck?
I'm here.
Yeah.
What's up?
What's happening over there? You tell me.
I'm getting ready for the draft, man. I'm excited. This is a great time of the year. It's just a fun time.
Yeah, but how ready are you? Because I'm throwing this at you 8 days in advance. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna do this instead of just saying, well, this dude's gonna pick whoever at number 21. We're gonna work our way down. We're gonna start at the top. We're gonna kind of meander our way, not through the whole thing. We're not gonna do a mock here or whatever, but just get to the point where we understand what's available to the Steelers and why, and who it is that they might be looking at. So at the very top, Chris, what's the activity, right when it gets going?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty much consensus that Cam Ward is going to go first overall to the Titans.
They certainly think so.
Yeah, they certainly think so. I mean, he's the number one quarterback in the class. They need a quarterback. All signs are pointing to that. Abdul Carter is going to go in the top 5. If he doesn't go to the Browns, he'll go to the Giants or possibly the Patriots or the Jaguars. He'll be gone in the top 5. Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State, will most
You
likely be
love
gone.
Ashton Genty.
I
Yes.
do, but he's going to be gone in the top 10 most likely. The Raiders seem like a really good place for him to go. Either way, I think he'll be gone. Mason Graham's going to be gone in the top 10, I think, as well. Top defensive tackle in the class.
And that's, I think, where it gets a little interesting, Chris, because when you're talking about the defensive tackles, that's the one where you're looking at most likely the run, that everybody talks about every year. Oh, here comes the run on the blank. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that you're going to see from in that range on down to where the Steelers are, every other pick might be a DT.
It's very possible. The good thing for the Steelers is in this draft is that there are a number of positions that there are some very, very attractive options near the top of the class. And one of those positions, and it's probably the best position in the entire draft itself, is edge rusher. And everybody wants an edge rusher. Everybody wants one. It's becoming obviously not the quarterback position. Nothing will ever come close to being as valuable as the quarterback. But in terms of another position that teams really kind of go out of their way to, look at what Myles Garrett just got paid. $40 million. Max Crosby, upper 30s. TJ Watt is going to get a contract, like it or not. He will get a contract of that magnitude, and it fits. There's a lot of people who don't like it.
It's just to talk about nothing.
I know,
killing time till the draft. But go ahead.
But edge rusher is a really, really good class this year. There's some guys near the top. They're going to probably take up before the Steelers pick at 21. I would not be surprised if at least 3 or 4 edge rushers are gone by that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's great for the Steelers because they're not taking one.
Yeah. You've got. Shoot, man, I'm going through it right now. You got Michael Williams from Georgia. He's one of them. Mike Green, the kid from Boston College. Shamar Stewart. That's 4 that could all be gone in the top 20. Not saying they're going to be gone, but it's plausible for sure. And then you're not even talking about offensive tackle, even though it's not a great tackle class. There are going to be tackles that go because it's another position that teams just go out of their way for. And there are at least a couple that are worthy of being selected in the top 10 or top 15. So just by process of elimination, the Steelers could have their pick at one of the defensive tackles they like, even at 21 overall.
So what we don't know right now is whether or not the Saints are going to take a quarterback. You would think that the Saints are going to do that just out of plain old need. I don't know how you enter an NFL season without one. Derek Carr, for anybody who doesn't know, has a shoulder injury, and that kind of it influences strongly the outcome of the entire first round, not just at the quarterback position, but the Saints could have moved other pieces for other people. Now, as you're getting to 21, are there enough defensive tackles? Let's start right there. Mm-hmm. Are there enough of them for the Steelers to survive that run on DTs?
Yeah, I believe so. Mason Graham is one, Kenneth Grant's another, Derek Harmon out of Oregon is another, and then Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. Those are the consensus top 4. And there could always be the scenario that all 4 go in the top 20. Not nearly as likely as edge rusher is going. Number one, because again, edge rusher is a more valued position than defensive tackle is. As much as defensive tackles are making nowadays, they're not making edge rusher money. They're just not. Edge rush, like I said, Myles Garrett just got $40 million a year. It would not surprise me, TJ Watt, if TJ Watt got the same contract adjusted for inflation based off of the NFL salary cap, his AAV this year should be around for the new contract should be almost $43 million.
40, yeah. It sounds crazy, but there it is.
Yeah, because the salary cap has grown almost $100 million since TJ got his contract extension 4 years ago.
Yes,
that's the reason why. So, edge rushers are making significantly more money, and that's why there's a better chance of that being a run than defensive tackles. So, if 3 of the 4 are gone, then shoot, there's still one there. And if you don't want to trade back and you like the guy, whether it's Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon or Walter Nolan, whoever it is, if he's your guy, just like it was with Fautanu last year, then you just take your guy. You don't need to trade back.
A little bit of a TJ interlude here. Alan says, who's going to replace TJ with game wrecking? TJ's not going anywhere. Yeah. I understand we could probably get all kinds of additional views and discussion and everything else by going, what's happening with TJ? Okay, except that we know it's not going to. So if you want us to be dishonest here and try to drum up something so that you guys, so that, whoever would fall for that would just be like, yeah, this is the show, man. They're talking about all the hot topics. No, TJ's not going anywhere. Okay, he's just not. Robert says he's ticked off over the TJ situation. What TJ situation? It does not exist. Yeah. Okay, if TJ is not wearing black and gold come the first weekend of September, go right ahead and get ticked off. But he's going to be. And you know what else he's going to do? He's going to retire in that jersey. And TJ interlude. Todd Yukich comes in. A good question here from Todd. Before we get to our little phase of our non-mock draft, Todd says, did the Steelers just decide to stop drafting instinctive style players, or are they coaching the instinct out of the players? Is it just me, or are we loaded with purely instinctive players in the years past? Before I throw that to you, Chris, I don't know that it's so much about instinctive. I just think it's great. Okay, when you're thinking of great players, you're also thinking of instinctive guys. You're thinking of guys who rose above coaching, like a Troy Polamalu, okay? Mm-hmm. You're thinking of guys who would teach themselves techniques, whatever, the way Debo did. James Harrison was a master of his own craft. Did he have help along the way? Absolutely. He would tell you that in definitive terms. Yeah. But when you're talking about instinctive guys, you're talking about, well, let's go right back to it, Chris. BPA. Get your best actual football player. If you want that on a smaller scale, a much, much smaller scale than the two that I just mentioned, Mike Hilton. What did Hilton do when he stepped onto Chuck Noll Field in Latrobe? He just made football plays. Mm-hmm. Okay, everything was up here. It didn't need to be coached into him how to be in the right place at the right time, how to bring that guy down. He's just a football player, not a scouting combine player, but a football player. I am completely in favor of this approach, even if it takes longer for the Steelers to get back to where they need to be.
Yeah, and for anybody who is really wanting a defensive tackle in the class and you're wanting to get a player that kind of fits that mold, I'm not even talking about the freakish stuff, but if you're talking about above the neck stuff, like somebody who just understands football, Derek Harmon out of Oregon is the guy. He is a very, very smart football player. He understands what his job is, but that it's just one of 11. He understands that what his role is on the defensive line and what he needs to do to not only try to win his own rep, but how to best succeed so that his linebackers can have the most amount of room to do their jobs, for what he needs to do so that the edge rushers to have their have what they need to do their jobs, and then everything else behind them as well. Those are the type of guys that are interesting as well. And I know I've talked a lot about Kenneth Grant, and I think he's a freakish guy, and he's an easy guy to kind of fall in love with when you turn the tape on. But when you watch Derek Harmon play and you understand that there's a lot of good stuff above the neck, that's another guy that you're kind of talking about. And if the Steelers walk away with him at 21 overall, or wherever they end up picking in the first round, I think Steelers fans are eventually going to be really happy with him, because he's one of those type of guys to me. And it's not just because he's built in a very similar way to Cam Hayward. It's about being his own guy and having his own football smarts before he even steps foot on the NFL field.
Kyle Mundy says, Minkah so far from the line of scrimmage, I wonder if Tomlin tossed him a $5 bill to get some hot dogs. I did a podcast this morning, my daily shot of Steelers, that was basically just somewhat tongue-in-cheek. I still haven't decided whether it's there or not on that subject. suggesting that the Steelers trade Minkah since they're not even using him properly. They got themselves, this, $70,000 car, and they put it outside, on the curb instead of finding a garage for it. I don't know, man. This isn't the team that rebuilds. Okay, so you're not going to see anything like that happen, of course. But I wonder if there's anything that could shake the Steelers out of doing that, out of taking that approach with Minkah. Not trading him. I'm talking about just, getting him closer to the line.
Oh, I mean, I do think that the approach that they've taken, at least at cornerback, is going to help. I think that's why they signed Darius Slay. Now you've got two cornerbacks who are capable of playing man coverage. That almost like it takes away the need, but it definitely limits the need for having to have safety help over the top. If you have a guy who can be out there on an island per se at times, not all the time, it's not Darrelle Revis or anything like that, but if you have a guy who can kind of hold stuff down more often, you can allow Minkah to go be a ball hawk, play closer to the line of scrimmage, then that helps. And when you bring in Darius Slay, who can still man cover, I don't care about his age, he can still man cover. That helps, and improving the slot corner position will help that too. And I'm curious to see what Brandon Echols could do, competing with Beanie Bishop there. And then there's also the draft; they could take a slot corner in the draft.
Is that where you see Echols going? You see him as being more of a slot as a competitor for Beanie, or as depth on the outside?
He could be both, honestly.
I know he could be, but that's why I'm asking.
Well, I mean, I honestly could be kind of like Cam Sutton was a couple of years ago, not last year. No, but a couple of years ago in 22, whenever he kind of bounced back and forth. Sometimes he was in the slot, sometimes he was on the outside. It provide that having that type of versatility. I think Tomlin's always wanted to have a really versatile guy in that room, and Echols is that guy, because Corey Trice isn't that guy. He's got to figure out how to stay on the field long enough so that he can continue to develop as an outside corner before you start saying, hey, this position you're still kind of learning at the NFL level. Now we're going to also ask you to learn another position. Like, it's not not asking Corey Trice to do that right now. Bringing in a guy like Brandon Echols is not only cost effective, but he's a guy who's played both on the outside and in the slot, and he can do both. But I mean, if Brandon Echols wants to play the most amount of snaps, no matter what, the clearest path to that is unseating Beanie Bishop in the slot corner, because I mean, you got Joey Porter and Darius Slay.
When we met with Echols a couple of weeks ago over at the facility, he certainly seems to have all the energy and enthusiasm that you'd want. And you can imagine that he would have no issue just bouncing back and forth. He made that pretty clear to us that day. DV says, DK, does this best player available attitude also exclude Shedeur Sanders in addition to edge rusher if Marion Hampton and all three defensive linemen are gone at 21? I can't. If all the Steelers do next Thursday night is walk into that room where we're sitting there and say, we looked at our board, that was the name that was left at the top. We scratched off the other ones as the other teams picked them, and that was the one. I'm not going to have issue with the pick.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless it's something that's really, really ridiculous. But I would look at that and say, okay, maybe we're back to the old era of Steelers just drafting players who can have high ceilings and develop into being. It doesn't have to. Again, I don't want to overuse the word great. Great is getting Cam late first round. Great is getting TJ late first round. Actually, getting those guys at any point in their respective drafts would be great. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, including first overall on probably a couple of cases. Mm-hmm. But I'm tired of there they are. It's their turn to pick, and they need a running back. So, okay, over to you, Bill. Well, we all know the Steelers need a running back, so they're going to end up taking this guy. And it's just, come on.
Yeah.
Get some players.
Yeah.
Sort them out when you get to Latrobe. Don't sort them out at the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. looking at that particular scenario brought up by DV, if Hampton's gone, that means Genty's gone because there's no way Hampton's going ahead of Genty. And then all the defensive tackles we're talking about are gone. And Sanders is the best player available, but you're not comfortable with that. Maybe check your phone, see if anybody's calling to trade up to that spot. Because if Sanders is still there are some teams that might be looking for a quarterback. And if you want to trade down because you'd rather have Darius Alexander plus more picks, or you'd rather have any other player plus more picks, then maybe you do that instead. Maybe Sanders isn't worth it at 21. Maybe he's more worth it if you trade back and he's still there somehow. I don't know. That depends on the Steelers. But if the Steelers have a certain guy that they're like, no matter what, if we're sitting at 21 and this guy's still there, we're taking him. And that has to be, like you said, if that's their process, I think they should look to try to trade back, but don't just look to trade back just to pick up draft capital. It's the same logic as let's just trade TJ Watt so we can get a really great edge rusher. You don't know. What you do know, what you have in TJ Watt is a defensive player of the year who's a perennial all-pro. That's what you have in TJ Watt. You don't know that if you trade him and get an edge rusher. So take the best player you possibly can, obviously within reason. Don't just take an edge rusher, but take the best player you can. And if Sanders is that guy at 21, then take him.
If you look at the David DeCastro draft, I'm going back a little bit here, and you know for a fact, and you trust the information that the Steelers had absolutely no interest in a guard going into that class. But there's Dave, who they had as a top 5. Not top 5 guard, top 5 player in that draft. And he just keeps coming, and he just keeps coming, and he just keeps coming. All other conversation in your room ceases that is not related to that player, and hoping and praying and crossing your fingers that he makes it a couple more notches. Dave made it. Who is worrying about the depth chart or positional needs when you got Dave?
Yeah.
Dave comes into the fold. You will find a place for him. Okay. Yeah. And I would imagine that would apply. I mean, I don't want to say this out loud, but even if it was an edge rusher, okay. I understand you have a Nick Herbig as a number 3. Okay. I get that part, but you still need to look at generally managing a professional sports team as the accumulation of assets. Almost like it's almost like being in the stock market. You just want the most valuable shares that you can get. And you'll figure out what to do with them later. But in this process, this is just adding talent. That's really the. You know, it's funny, Chris, because the Steelers not only say every year that they don't like to go into the draft based on need, but then they go and they actually do. It's not just word, it's also deed. They will address positions through free agency before they get to the draft, but then they'll still draft by need, which is the part that just that's what doesn't add up here. It's like they can't get it out of their head that just getting the best player is the priority.
Yeah, I do think, again, that sometimes those things can go hand in hand. I think last year was one of them. I do think that when you look at where the Steelers picked that Troy Fautanu, I can definitively say that I was surprised that Fautanu was still there at 20, because he was way higher rated coming out of college. He was looked at as one of the best tackles in that class, and for him to not go until 20th overall, that was pretty surprising. And so I do think that at that point, yes, they do happen to, go hand in hand with need at that point. But yeah, if you see the Steelers we're going to take a defensive tackle no matter what, and let's just say there is a run. Let's just say 4 defensive tackles are gone, and Darius Alexander is the best one available, and they just stand pat at 21 and take him. That might be a good hint that, yeah, I think they were just trying to get a defensive tackle no matter what. And that's not the way to approach a draft.
Lyle Croft says the defense needs to change. We're talking about the various values of TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick to this defense. I didn't put it up. One of the comments was, I've lost it now, but one of them was how TJ's value to a team and the amount of money that he gets is muted by the fact that the NFL doesn't support edge rushers, and they allow him to be held and they allow him to be neutralized by the other side. Let's call it what it is, cheating. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you're going into a game facing TJ Watt and your coaches and everybody decide in advance, all we're going to do is hold this guy. We'll take whatever flags they throw, but we know they aren't going to throw many.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's the case, I still don't see it as, I don't see TJ as lacking value as much as I see the schematics preventing him from doing what he needs to do. He's talked openly about it.
Yep.
You know, at the end of he needs to be able to move about the line. He needs to have more of that Myles Garrett, that specific Myles Garrett element to his game. He's got to be a threat from the middle. He's got to be able to switch up sides. He can't just have the one side and the one set of moves, or else teams do reduce his value considerably. It's maddening. It's frustrating. It's borderline scandalous, but it's real. Okay. Yeah. And there's nothing any of us can do about it other than, pound our fist on the desk.
Yeah, it was refreshing to hear TJ talk about that at the end of the season, to say that he needs to be more open to moving around and not just staying on the same side all the time. Because when you do look at some of the best edge rushers in the game, and TJ is still one of them, Myles Garrett moves around. Micah Parsons moves around. Like that, they all kind of do. Now everybody has their own style. Myles Garrett is just a freak of nature. I mean, you just look at the specimen and it's just, he's a freak. Micah Parsons is also a freak, but in kind of his own way. And for all the talk about TJ being held, nobody is held more than Micah Parsons.
Over the course. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's ridiculous how much he's held.
Micah. Yeah. And that's because he showed himself as a freak immediately when he got there from Penn State and made a massive impact. I just feel like one of the things that has to happen with TJ specifically is that there has to be an understanding on his part that over the course of your NFL career, things are going to change, meaning league-wide, sports-wide. Yep. Vince Williams used to be great talking about this. He's like, I understand my type of inside linebacker is quickly becoming a dinosaur. I've got to find other ways to do things to be effective. I have to be able to do some of that Ryan Shazier stuff. I have to add some of that to my game if I'm going to play for another 2-3 years in this league. And sooner rather than later, it was the change in football more than his own performance that drove him out of the league. Okay. And I'm not suggesting anybody's driving TJ out of the league, but you do have to adjust. You have to adjust to rule changes. You have to adjust to guidelines. You have to adjust to trends, to schematics. And I really feel like this is a big summer for TJ in that regard.
Yeah, and but also, people need to also remember, while he does need to move around more, I agree with that. He also does things that other edge rushers don't do. Because a lot of edge rushers were maybe defensive ends, and that's more like traditional 4-3 defensive ends, and that's more their background. TJ does a lot more in coverage.
He really does. Yeah.
Than people give him credit for. I mean, that's the reason why he usually has more interceptions than most of them. That's the reason why he usually has more batted passes or passes defensed than most of them. He also does still do those things, and also he's a really, really great run defender.
Please, I was waiting for it. He seals that edge. Yes.
He is a phenomenal run defender. It might be the best at his position in terms of defending the run. And so many times people will just look at sack production and judge a player based off of that, and they'll look at 11 and a half
he's
sacks.
Invisible. They'll say he's invisible. I hear that one a lot.
Oh,
TJ was invisible in this game because he didn't get a sack, and he has to kick his leg into the air for you to realize that he had a good game. It's like, there's a lot more to it here. We're gonna take a couple more of these today here. I thought I saw some good ones down here. Mike says, I would rather TJ play the same side at 10 of 10 efficiency than have him switch and be 7 of 10 efficient just because he won't be double teamed. Mike, it's not that he gets double teamed. First of all, he doesn't really get double teamed. You don't see that much. What you see is a chipping. Now, if you consider that to be a double team, then that's a different definition than mine. Yeah. He is very heavily chipped. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it means they put like a tight end or somebody next to that outside tackle, and they just kind of bump TJ on their way to running the remainder of the route. Mm-hmm. You'll see that impact his game not all that much. It's just the flat out holding. It's the flagrant wrapping both arms around his stomach. Remember that dude?
Yeah.
And just being dragged by him toward the quarterback. I don't remember where that was. I think it was on the road somewhere. But it was like, what are you doing here? That one actually got flagged.
Yeah.
I asked TJ, this was after a game, I think it was in Atlanta last year, preseason game. How many have you ever counted the number of flags you've got holding pound? He said, no, but I'm putting you on that. I never got on that. I should have. It's probably an amazing number.
Yeah. It probably is.
And that, what do you do for that, Mike? Like, what do you say? You know, Jerry says, he pulled his helmet off. Holding is not called. And the reason for that is that the NFL has a guideline of protecting quarterbacks. And the reason that they have a guideline of protecting quarterbacks isn't because they want to, put skirts on them or other awful phrases like that. It's that the owners are putting an unbelievable amount of cash into that position. Mm-hmm. And the last, you can imagine if you're an owner, you have 50 million of your cap or whatever at that position. You're not even watching the game. You're not even enjoying anything. All you're doing is holding your breath every single drop back. Every single drop back. And when that player lives to see another snap,
Yeah, that's a great problem to have, because when you have that franchise quarterback, you always have a chance. You always have, and that was the thing when Ben Roethlisberger was first drafted. That was going to be the thing, was the Steelers are going to have a chance to compete every single year that he's the quarterback. And I'd say for the vast majority of those 18 years, that was the case. They had a chance. They had a legitimate chance to compete, or at least get into the playoffs. And then once the playoffs begin, anything can happen. That's a problem that every owner will be happy to have, and stress they'll be happy to take. But yeah, it's obvious, the NFL, its rules definitely favor the offense. That's just, it's pretty
and yet scoring is down and the passing numbers are down. Yep. And Matthew Bunk says that game was against the Titans. Here's our last question for today here. It's from DV. He says, to play devil's advocate, I'm not sure how you stop edge rushers from wrecking games without doing that. They can't liberalize the pass blocking anymore like they did in 1978, but at the same time, it's BS. Yeah, they're not invested in this, DV. They don't see an advantage to the sport of football by having these guys cut loose. Now, if you want to know my answer to this, it's really off the beaten path. The way to fix this problem is to have a position-specific salary cap on quarterbacks. Okay, so that they aren't that, I have to protect the investment. Because I don't want money coming into the game. That's what that is. That's money coming onto the field. Mm-hmm. Okay, where they're more concerned about protecting the quarterback investment than they are in the game itself. The game itself, as a few of you have pointed out here yourselves, has been made great in large part because of the sexiness of the edge rusher, of the Reggie White. That's always been a glamour position in the NFL.
It has.
And you don't even see, Chris, anymore, the highlight, what was it that Tom Jackson would yell out on ESPN whenever there'd be a big hit?
You
guys help us out.
I'll think of it.
Jacked.
Oh, jacked up. Jacked up. Yeah.
I beat you all to it.
Yeah.
He got jacked up. And you don't see that anymore because, I guess there's also obviously some sensitivity to concussion issues and CTE, and you don't want head-on-head stuff making it there. But what made football what it is in our society was that. It was the only sport that looked like that. It's still the only sport that looks like that. And what they did was they just said, well, but we're putting so much money into the quarterback. So limit the quarterback pay. Have a quarterback cap. Have a quarterback cap of 20 million or a certain percent, not a dollar figure, but a certain percentage of the salary cap. That allows more players to make more money in the league, by the way, which is a positive. Okay. It allows more money for other benefits and pensions and stuff like that too. Great. Do all that. But don't be doing this so that you're bubble wrapping the quarterback, so to speak, in a fiscal way.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure. I don't see, as John says, I don't see the NFL or the Players Association going for it.
Don't be so sure about the Players Association.
No, I know the PA is probably the weakest in all the sports.
Well, so. I didn't mean that. I think the PA, the NFL's PA, is way more influenced by its lower class than that of any other sport. And because you have these huge rosters, 53-man versus half of that in the other sports, they have a louder voice. Tyler Matakevic's vote counts just as much as Patrick Mahomes. That sounded like I sent Dirty Red astray. I did not mean to do that. Love you, Dirty Red. But that's my point. He's a classic special teams guy who goes from team to team, makes minimum wage, whatever, puts his body on the line. Doesn't necessarily have the longest career, and he deserves what he's getting for his work in the NFL too. And those guys have the same weighted vote. That's a large part how the owners get their way. It's a really different dynamic.
It really is.
Last one. Long Pod says there's no quarterback skill outside of maybe the top 20, 25-ish in the NFL. How do we know that? Don't make me bring up minor leagues again. They don't play, dude. They just stand on the sideline and rot weekend after weekend after weekend. They're never afforded a chance to get better unless they do what Mason Rudolph did, which is just discipline themselves into oblivion.
Yeah. And listen, like, just because this is not the greatest quarterback draft doesn't mean that there won't be a really great quarterback, or maybe even multiple great quarterbacks from this class. We may look at this class in 5 years and be like, what were we talking about? Who in the heck was hating on Jackson Dart? Who in the heck was hating on Tyler Shuck?
I love it.
I mean, seriously, like, because it could happen. Jackson Dart can prove a lot of people wrong because he does have the skill set. A lot of these guys have the skill sets in order to succeed, but there are certain red flags that probably make them a little bit more risky, and that's why certain teams are willing to take the chance. And then there might be certain guys who enter the exact right system, and it's the perfect fit for them, and because of that, they can grow. And some other guys who are way more talented may go on the wrong team, and they can't develop, and they don't turn into, they never realize their potential. It's just, you never know. You never know.
Chris, appreciate the time. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow where we'll be exactly 1 week out from the draft. Notice how we got through this whole episode without saying who they'll take at 21. Maybe now we can save that tomorrow. All right, guys, let's take care of some business here. Let's see what we have here. Oh, the boss puts up 1705 membership. That's backward by about 100. Remember, I told you that's kind of how that stuff goes whenever it's real heavy on the gifts. Don't get me wrong. We and everybody appreciate the gifts, but they expire after, what is it, 1 month? Mama? After 1 month, they expire. So that's, that's where that number is going to fluctuate some. The best way to become a part of this community, meaning for more than just a month, is to come in and get your own. James Fairfield comes in with $1.99, says great show. That's appreciated. Mike gifted 5. Stella Fierce came in with a $4 super sticker. Brent came in and he gifted 1. Jeffrey gifted 10. Carrie is always gifted 1. We have, I think it's right there. Here's Stella Fierce with a 20, and Always appreciate it, Stella. And Vic comes in with a 50. We love Vic. And Vic also comes with an admonishment. He says, let's get to that 3,000. Let's do that. Remember that the goal, or if you're new here, the goal is to get to 3,000 by the start of training camp in Latrobe. And you're going to see things like this along the way where it goes up and then it goes down and then it goes really up or it goes really down like it did here. And that's why. It's because the gifts will expire. What we hope is that you'll be able to use the gifts, appreciate the perks that come with it and everything, including, I should add, the members-only programming that we're going to be offering beginning next week. Now, I got to tell you, I had one guy kind of lose it on me yesterday a little bit in saying, so wait a second, now I have to pay 99 cents for every episode? No. The 99-cent membership covers an entire month of everything we have on this channel. That means all of the daily shots, all of the double shots, being part of this community, asking questions, the Ramon Foster show. Ramon wasn't able to make it today, by the way. He had an issue with his dog, hoping for the best there. And Matt Williamson and Chris Halleck and everybody that we have on this channel, that's all part of it. It's one dinky little price. It's 99 cents for the whole month. And go to dkps.net/join to do that. You have to type it up into your URL field. So, all right, guys, tomorrow, 4:00. See everybody then.